Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today I am going to be doing a repaint of this Monster High Abby Bominable doll, and I'm turning her into Shiromori from Mystery Skulls Animated. If you haven't watched the Mystery Skulls Animated series, I highly recommend going to watch it. There are 6 characters total in the series, one of which is Shiromori, who was released in the second installment of the series. Now, I absolutely love Shiromori. From her oversized hands, to the literal tree growing out of her head, to her foot stumps. Now, I'm not going to say anything too much more about her since I highly recommend going and watching the series. Please, go give them your love and support. And with that being said, let's get into making the doll. I decided to pick Abby Bominable because not only are her Monster High hands a lot larger than the regular Monster High dolls, but she also has a sharper jawline, which in character design, sharper shapes usually mean a more antagonistic role. However, there's one issue with the Abby doll, and with this particular rendition of Abby, she had glitter covering her entire body, so I had to get to sanding. And now on to the regular prep work. First, I decided to cut off her hair, and I tried to cut it as short as I possibly could before having to tug it out of her head. I softened up the head with some warm water. I didn't even have to use boiling water. It just came right off the neck peg. Since I didn't have any needle nose pliers, I decided to use these teeny tiny scissors that I had to scrape out the remaining parts. One of the issues I found along the way was that this doll in particular, her part was very deeply rooted. It made it difficult not only to get the plugs out, but when I did get the plugs out, the skull of the doll kind of looked like it was ripping apart. It did give me a little bit of issues when it came to rerouting later. Next, I went to remove the makeup, only to realize that I didn't have any acetone, so I tried using nail polish remover. It didn't really work. And then I realized that I was going to be recoloring the doll anyway, so I decided not to finish that and to just recolor the face. As for recoloring the doll, I didn't have an airbrush, and airbrushes are heckin' expensive, so I was not going to get one of those. Instead, I used very thin layers of watered down acrylic paint, and I used it across the surface of the doll, and overall, I think she turned out pretty decently. And remember the tree that was literally growing out of Shiromori's head earlier? Yep, I am going to be making that. In order to do this, I made a basic skeleton out of toothpicks and a fabric pin. I hot glued them all together and then covered them all with some paper that I wrapped around the outside. From there, I had a stump. Once all of the things were colored, I sprayed the doll with a layer of Mr. Super Clear, which is a highly toxic chemical. I highly recommend that you don't breathe it in.
Okay, so we're gonna spray them with like a fixing spray.
Don't do any of that. Once the Mr. Super Clear dried overnight, I got to the blushing. As for the body, I didn't think it turned out well at all. I was using human makeup, which I know a lot of people would be like, no, don't do that. And the reason why I used this is because I was doing a test doll and it was just a standard human skin-toned color doll. And the blushing here, as you can see, I thought it turned out pretty well, so I assumed I could just use that on a different color doll. I guess a lot of the colors that work on humans really well didn't work on her at all, and it just ended up making Shiromori's body look really dirty. Now onto the face. Before I even started recording, I did a little bit of the blushing on the face. I just wanted to see if it looked alright, and once I blushed it, I decided to start with the whites of the eyes. Once I got the whites of the eye all completed, I thought they looked pretty okay, and the pupils looked pretty good too. I highly recommend going very slowly with the face, especially the eyelashes, because when I got to that part, I messed up several times and I ended up covering up the blushing that I did earlier on the face. So I wasn't too proud with that part, and I'll definitely try to improve on that next time. Also, with the blush lips, I made sure to fill those in with acrylic too, just to make them stand out a bit more and give them a little bit more color. I also decided to do the facial markings, which she has. She has 2 jagged lines going across her cheeks and a swirl type shape on her chin. I also had to do a couple on her shoulders, as those are also shown. Using the same color as the eyeliner, I also painted the tree that was to grow out of her head, and once that was dry, I hot glued on some cotton balls for the leaves. If I'm being honest though, it kind of looks like the Animal Crossing trees, which wasn't entirely what I was going for, but it's welcomed. I needed to get her some hair, so using yarn and a fine tube cone, I'd made wefts of yarn hair and attached it slowly but steadily to her head using fabric glue. Since I was too scared to use boiling water, I just used a straightener, worked perfectly fine for the yarn hair. Using fabric glue, I slowly, bit by bit, attached little wefts to her head until I came to the part. The part was probably the most difficult part of doing the hair. With most of the doll done, let's move on to the outfit. Using an old black t-shirt and a pre-made tank top from another Monster High doll, I began making her shirt. If you're interested in the topic of how I made this, be sure to watch this very helpful video by Delightful if you want a full explanation on using previously existing Monster High clothes to make new ones. Finally, I used my sewing machine. Then I sewed beads onto the open back of the shirt, as I was unable to find any sort of clasps that I could pick up in store in my area, and I used those to close the shirt. I'm not going to go too into depth about the rest of the clothes. I made this cute corset, and I made her this skirt. One thing about the character that I love is that she has this pair of shears, which she uses as a weapon. Now for this project, I decided to rewatch Freaking Out as well as Hellbent, just because I wanted to see the mechanics of her shears, to see if I want to do the massive shears or the tiny ones. I decided on the big ones since they're just fun and hardcore looking. What I didn't notice until a couple days ago is that it looks like the shears are actually a living entity. To make the shears, I decided to reference how they looked off screen, and I tried to make the shape of the blade as best as possible. After attaching the 2 pieces together, I noticed that I was having a difficulty with how I was going to attach them until I saw this pin. I used to make a lot of those Shrinky-Dink pins a couple months ago, and this was the last one. What luck! I attached them together, and now you can open and close them. Later, I added handles made of toothpicks, and I painted them black. I also painted the blade to be a pinkish gray color, as that's what's shown in the animation. And finally, I added a coat of Mod Podge on top. I also used a hot glue gun, and I made a little drop on a piece of paper. I let it completely dry, and I painted over it to make the eye. Now, here's a life lesson if you're going to be painting one of these dolls. Always keep the extra paint for the skin tone on hand. I kept it in this little medicine bottle, which kept it from drying out. I'm thinking of probably redoing the blushing in the future, as right now I do have chalk pastels coming in the mail. And here for the final detail, we have a tiny paper triangle that I'm going to use as a fang, since she has very sharp teeth. I added it on with a toothpick and some fabric glue. With all of those details all together at last, I was finally ready to do the photo shoot. I really enjoyed making this doll. As a first try, I'm proud of how Shiromori came out, and if you're interested, maybe let me know which Mystery Skulls character you'd like me to do next. If any of the people who have worked on the Mystery Skulls series are watching this, thank you so much for making such quality content, and if you guys still haven't seen the series yet or go watch the videos, I'm going to have a link up in the iCard just so you guys can start and see Ghost, because this series deserves a lot of love and I am stoked for this October's new installment. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and also make sure to click the bell for more content. And I'll see you guys later. Goodbye!